formulaic because it can't be, or people wouldn't get past page 7. Romance books account for a little over 50% of all books sold in today's market. I'm talking all books. Romance dominates the bestseller lists. Out of a typical 288 titles that may show up on a list, about 160 of them belong to romance authors. That's roughly about 56%. The numbers speak for themselves, and yet I'm blown away by people who openly say that they don't read those books. It isn't real literature. It's silly and formulaic. Those same people also think they've never actually read a romance novel. But guess what? They've not only read it, but they've loved it. If they read Gone with the Wind, it's a romance. If they read Twilight, it's a romance. If they read Sense and Sensibility, it's a romance. And if they've read Little Dorrit by Charles Dickens, guess what? It's a romance. The only difference between the romance written back in the day as opposed to where we are now as a culture is that we have evolved in being more honest with our words. We don't hide behind them anymore. An example can be found, and I'm going to step into, since we are in a movie theater, I'm going to step into the idea of the theater. The romantic comedy, oh, and I should probably say, please turn off your phones. Or big buff guys will come in and turn them off for you. Some of you may leave that on, but it's not an incentive. So an example can be found in the romantic comedy, and I bring this up, I don't know if many of you remember the Philadelphia Story with Cary Grant that debuted back in 1940. It was written in an era when divorce, cheating fathers, and strong-willed daughters wanting to be more than just housewives were considered taboo. One never talked about the messiness of a relationship. You either alluded to it with a long list of metaphors or puns, or you hired reporters to do a story on your ex-socialite wife, so you can back into her life and seem like the good guy. Sounds rather complicated, doesn't it? Despite the inability to convey what was really going on behind the walls of a relationship, I will say back in 1939, the idea of romance itself was at least a little more respected by everyone than it is today. It was respected not just by women, but also men. Men went to the movies to see Clark Gable and didn't think twice about the fact that Gone with the Wind was a romance. There was a breathless excitement about the big screen that drew all kinds of people to it, no matter who they were and what they were watching. My, have times changed. You're lucky if you can get a guy to shave, yet alone talk him into seeing a chit flick with you. No wonder romance gets a bad rap. The guys are done thinking it's important. They think Valentine's Day is the only day a woman wants to feel special. To them, I say read a romance. You might learn something about the woman you're in a relationship with. Now, for those of you that think romance books are predictable and formulaic, I'd like to ask you all to think about your own relationships and try to put them into words. Would you dare making a living off of that? Would you be able to do it? It's a lot harder than people think. Bottom line, love is a subject touched on by every century, every book, every song, every play, every movie, so why doesn't it get respect? And this will be touched on in the movie. It's because it's a genre written by women for women. Interestingly enough, men don't seem to think the romance genre applies to them at all. When a man writes a romance, he calls himself Nicholas Sparks and says, and I'm quoting him here, I write what William Shakespeare wrote and what Jane Austen wrote. I don't write romance, I write love stories. Excuse me. Did he not know that Shakespeare and Jane Austen wrote romance, and back in their day, they were considered smut? Heaven forbid Nicholas Spark and a new generation of men compare themselves to the female romance novelists who are writing exactly the same kind of stories as he is. Because when a man writes lines in his book, and I'm quoting him here, you should be kissed every day, every hour, every minute. Buddy, you're writing romance. But guess what? It's okay. It's okay to admit that you write it. It's okay to admit that you read it, because no matter where you are in life, we all fall into having a real relationship with someone eventually. We even dare to fall in love in real life. The bottom line is there's no formula in creating a romance. If there was a formula, every book would be the same. The real secret of writing a good book is understanding people and translating those people onto the page so that others can not only connect with them, but genuinely want to spend time with them. It's not as easy as it looks. Believe me, it's taken me 11 years of writing almost 40 books before a publisher gave me a chance I needed to find my audience. Jane Austen couldn't find a publisher either. Most people don't realize she had to pay a publisher to get her first book published. And today, there isn't a person who doesn't know her name or has fallen in love with Mr. Darcy. Because the themes of romance are timeless. Everyone can relate to having a relationship that doesn't go in the way we expect it to. The ultimate love story is basically taking two people through an emotional journey of discovering not only who they are to each other, but who they are to themselves. That discovery ultimately leads them into the sort of relationship they should be in, a damn good one. It's called a happily ever after, and in my opinion, we all deserve one. So before I introduce